Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. How are you? I hope you're well. Now, this is the second episode in a few days. I don't often release them like this, but as you may have seen and heard, the summer transfer window shuts at the end of August. So I was joined by Gary Lambert from Channel England Football on YouTube to discuss those moves and also pay tribute to Sven-Göran Eriksson following his sad passing on the 26th of August. Now, that episode is still available at your podcast provider of choice or threelionspodcast.com. But before we get onto this episode, just wanted to say you can, of course, follow the show on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's also on YouTube if you want to tune in there. And on the very odd occasion, I'll put a video on there. I don't know, maybe I should do a few more of those. Not a vlog as such, maybe a compilation of videos, photos from games. I don't know. We'll see. You can also email me as well. Always great to hear from you. threelionspodcast@gmail.com. And also, you're welcome to support the podcast in its monthly hosting. Just head to ko-fi.com/3lionspodcast, ko-fi.com/3lionspodcast. Any contributions are gratefully received. Right, this episode, it's the Nations League. It returns. This is a competition that began in 2018 and it comes around every couple of years. This will be its fourth season. Now, we've had a patchy history in it. In its first season, we actually made the finals in Portugal. We lost to the Netherlands in the semi-finals and then we beat the Swiss in the third place match on penalties. Portugal would go on to win that inaugural trophy, beating the Dutch in the final. The second season saw us finish in third place in League A2. We avoided relegation but didn't progress any further. It was a group that contained Belgium, Denmark and Iceland. France would eventually go on to win the trophy there, beating Spain in the final in Milan. Then the third season, 2022, was nothing more than a disaster. Drawn with Italy, Hungary and Germany, we finished bottom and were relegated to League B for the very first time. We drew 3 and lost 3 of the 6 games played. The lowest point being that 4-0 home defeat to Hungary at Wolves. Now, that year, Spain beat Croatia on penalties in the final in Rotterdam. So here we are. We find ourselves in League B, drawn alongside Finland, the Republic of Ireland and Greece. Not really where you'd expect twice Euro finalists to be, but that's football, isn't it? It is what it is. Main objective will be to qualify top of this and get back to the top table of European football within UEFA, which in turn will help with seeding for future tournaments. That's how this Nations League kind of works as well. So these games coming up are Ireland away in Dublin, Saturday the 7th of September, and I'll be joined by Joe McCarthy from the Twitter account @IrishAbroad. And then we welcome Finland to Wembley on Tuesday the 10th. And to talk about that, I'll be joined by Mark from the Finnish Football Show @Finnish FTBL Show on Twitter is their handle. Now, before we get to that, we need to cover the latest England squad. It is the first to be named by interim manager Lee Carsley, who replaced Gareth Southgate following his stepping down as manager following that Euro final defeat to Spain. Obviously, the season has only just started and you hear the usual noise from people who don't like their Premier League being interrupted so soon. These are FIFA's dates. It's nothing to do with the Premier League. FIFA set the dates. But already, Mr. Carsley has been seen at Chelsea against Manchester City, Aston Villa against Arsenal, has been running his eye over his various options. Now, an hour and a half before the squad was announced, Kieran Trippier, he announced his international retirement. A player who made his debut back in 2017 away to France in a 3-2 defeat. He became the 1,202nd player to represent the Three Lions. Those, of course, are the legacy numbers. He'd go on to earn 54 caps, scoring just the once. I'm sure you remember it. Quite a goal too. 2018 World Cup semi-final against Croatia. He opened the scoring with a 5th minute free kick. How he got our hopes up with that. His last cap came in the Germany Euros in the summer. That was against the Dutch in the semi-final. A right back by nature, but throughout that tournament, throughout the summer, he served his country well, deputising as a left back. So thank you very much to Kieran Trippier. Quite the England career. Now, as I expected, the squad is kind of a mix of Gareth's regulars, those experienced and trusted players, mixed with some newer players who Lee Carsley has had experience with at his previous under-21 job. Now, before we dissect it, let's run through it. This was Lee's squad, announced on the 29th of August, a 26-man squad. 3 goalkeepers, Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford and Nick Pope. Defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Trent being named as a defender by Lee Carsley. Levi Colwill, Mark Gay, Ezri Konsa, Rico Lewis, Tino Livramento, Harry Maguire, John Stones. Midfield, Phil Foden, Conor Gallagher, Morgan Gibbs-White, Angel Gomez, Kobe Mainu, Cole Palmer, Declan Rice, and then our strikers, our forwards, Jared Bowen, Eberichi Eze, Jack Grealish, Anthony Gordon, Harry Kane, Noni Madueke, Bukayo Saka and Ollie Watkins. It is a squad with an average age of 25.1, 616 caps across it and 106 goals. Now, the oldest player is Nick Pope at 32. The youngest, Rico Lewis at 19. The most capped is Harry Kane, who of course has the record for England goals scored, 66 for him. And across the squad there are 4 players from Manchester City, 3 from Crystal Palace, Newcastle and Chelsea. Yeah, just 3 players from Chelsea from their massive squad. 2 from Villa, 2 from Manchester United, 2 from Arsenal, 1 from Everton, Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, Nottingham Forest, Lille, West Ham and Bayern Munich. 4 uncapped players in the team. Let's take a look at those. Tino Livramento from Newcastle United. Morgan Gibbs-White from Nottingham Forest. Angel Gomez from Lille. And Noni Madueke from Chelsea. All previously with Lee Carsley at under 21 level. Important to point out, of course, was Cole Palmer. Understandably, people have been Googling some of these names. They're not familiar names to supporters who maybe don't take such an interest in England, the national team. But Angel Gomez, he plays in French Ligue 1 for Lille, but he was previously with Manchester United. He came through their academy back in 2017. He made 5 first-team appearances for them. But this is what I want to see. I want to see a manager looking around, having faith and giving opportunities to players. Noni Madueke as well. He's been doing really well for Chelsea. Got a hat-trick recently. So this, as I say, this is what I want to see. Lee Carsley giving players opportunities. And also he's taken a look at players who've previously played under Gareth Southgate who maybe didn't find a way back in under him. Returning is Rico Lewis, Jack Grealish, Harry Maguire, who of course missed the Euros due to injury. Nick Pope, Levi Colwell as well returns. Harry Maguire coming back. I mean, people will maybe voice some concerns, but I think this is where the mix of experience and youth can be sort of mixed together. Harry Maguire can return to pair with John Stones at the back for a solid foundation. And it's not, I don't want to judge Lee Carsley just on his first squad. As I said on Twitter, I genuinely think his more important squads will be his second and his third squad, because that's going to show who he has faith in, who he likes the look of, maybe some other players who he maybe had his eye on for this squad but couldn't fit them in. Injuries obviously will play a part, and obviously it works the other way, how the players sort of adapt to his methods and the people around him as well. So I'm going to hold fire on judging this squad. I think it's going to be more interesting to see the second and third squad. But he has been brave enough to leave some players out. Notable absences include Kyle Walker, Ben White. That's an interesting situation. One at the moment, no one knows the full details on it as yet, really. James Maddison, Marcus Rashford, Aaron Ramsdale, Luke Shaw, Adam Wharton, Lewis Dunk, Ivan Toney, and of course Jude Bellingham, who had previously made himself unavailable because of, I think he's got a muscle injury in his leg. But there's nothing to say that those players can't come through in his second and third squad, is the way I kind of look at it. He's got plenty of time to look around, use different players, integrate different players into the squad and find his best 11, find those players that he's happy with in a 26-man squad. But let's just have a quick listen to some of the things he said during his first press conference.
Yeah, I think it's a real proud moment, obviously, for my family and myself. I think it's been a really hectic couple of weeks. Trying to get my head around the magnitude of the job, the getting around to as many games as I can, try and see as many players as I can. I've been lucky or unlucky in the past that I've done this before in terms of taking over from a short-term point of view. Obviously at club level, generally you go into a club where things aren't going very well, but obviously this is the opposite. I think it's fair to say the job that Gareth and Steve did, and the position that I'm picking the current squad up are in a totally different position than what they inherited. I think the expectation now around the squad and the players is really exciting. So I understand that I'm in a really privileged position, one that I'm really looking forward to. I'm excited about it. Looking forward to meeting up with the players. Getting to the squad out today was an important bit. It was important that, like I spoke about before, putting my own stamp on the squad a little bit, but recognising how well they've done in the past. we've been so close a couple of times, and recognising that. So, but I thought it was important that we put some fresh faces in and put our own little mark on the squad.
Lee Carsley there. Now, in recent years, when games have approached, there would have been a few players that withdrew from the squad following their most recent club game, usually with little niggles here and there. Although, to be fair to Gareth's later years, I don't think it happened so much. Everyone wanted to be part of that squad, and they knew the potential within it. They knew if they withdrew, then their position, their place, was in severe jeopardy. Now, with a new manager at the helm, you'd have thought, once again, all will want to impress. As in any situation, first impressions count. And as the squad began to meet up at St George's Park this week, Phil Foden was the first to supposedly withdraw. This was mentioned earlier in the week by his Manchester City manager, Pep Guardiola. By all accounts, he was ill, and he's only played an hour this season, and that was in City's opener at Chelsea. However, he wasn't the only one. Also missing was Villa's Ollie Watkins and Chelsea's Cole Palmer, both who returned to their respective clubs to, and I quote, to continue their rehabilitation from ongoing issues. Does seem a little strange to me. Considering Palmer, he played the full game against Crystal Palace at the weekend, and Ollie Watkins played an hour in Villa's away win against Leicester. Both of these surprised me, that they've both withdrawn from a first squad. I doubt it will go against them. They're both clearly quality players. But Lee Carsley, must be fairly frustrated. But at the time of recording, he hasn't drafted anyone in to replace them. So, England's first game since that Euro final in the summer. The first game is away to the Republic of Ireland in Dublin. It's a fixture that began back in 1946 with a 1-0 away win for England, thanks to a Tom Finney goal. The next game at Everton's Goodison Park in 49 saw the Irish win that one 2-0. Over the years, the sides would meet regularly in World Cup or Euro qualifiers, but it wasn't until 1988 when they met in a finals against each other. Ray Houghton, you may remember, the only goal there for the Irish in that Euro 88 fixture. Back then, they were under the management of Jack Charlton. Yes, he of 1966. We went then 2 years later, Italia 90, where the two met in Sardinia, drawing one apiece. Then there was the 95 friendly that was abandoned at the old Lansdowne Road ground. But following that, it would be 18 years until the teams met again in a friendly at Wembley. But the most recent meeting between the two sides was back in 2020. Again, it was a friendly. You may be forgiven for maybe not remembering because it was behind closed doors. We won that one 3-0. But the sort of the stats over the years: played 17, won 6, drawn 9, lost 2. So there's a few little bits to get our teeth into here. I'd like to welcome to the show once again Joe McCarthy from the Twitter account Irish Abroad. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Russell. How are you? It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, likewise. We spoke back in 2020 ahead of that friendly game there. Seems quite a while ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, the COVID was still very much a thing, and as you say, the game was played behind closed doors. We were all hoping for an end to come soon. I think we were still maybe 12 months away from any sort of normality returning to life.
Yeah, that's something that we don't want to sort of really remember too much, but it just crops up every now and again. Yeah, Ireland against England. What's the thoughts going into the game from maybe yourself, your close friends, and sort of just the country?
Well, it's going to be the first game under the new manager, Iceland's Heimir Hallgrímsson. He was appointed during the summer. Came as a bit of a surprise because his name hadn't really been mentioned the current England manager, Lee Carsey, was one of the favourites after Stephen Kenny's contract wasn't renewed at the end of last year. There were other names like Willie Sagnol, who's currently managing Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Was also a bit of a wildcard entry, but seemed to be in the running right up until the Euros. And then after the performances by the team at the championships in the summer, he decided to pledge his future to the team. So Ireland we weren't really expecting anyone to be announced, and it seemed like John O'Shea would continue as in the caretaker role. He managed 4 games so far this year. We played friendlies against Belgium and Switzerland in March, and then Hungary and Portugal in June, just before the Euros kicked off. And then, as I say, Hallgrimsson, when he was appointed, no one really, I think, knew what to expect from him. I think the first thing everyone did was open his Wikipedia page and found that his most recent job was as coach of the Jamaican national side. I actually have a friend who's Irish but was living in Jamaica up until very recently, so I reached out to him for his thoughts on the kind of football he played. And the feedback was that he plays a very unadventurous but pragmatic style. He'll look to maybe not lose games before looking to win. But to be honest, look, if he can get the best out of the players the players that he's announced in the squad, we're looking forward maybe more so to the Greece game than the England game to see if any progress has been made from his appointment.
Gotcha. Well, there's a couple of things that I wanted to sort of pick up on there. Let's stick with the manager. You say was previously the Icelandic manager. I'm surprised you didn't sort of shoehorn it in, but he was actually the manager when Iceland beat England, wasn't he, in Euro 2016?
Yeah, that's right. I didn't want to bring it up, but yeah, that actually did come up in the press conferences. In the press conference, that his first game as Ireland manager will be against England, and he's everyone I think remembers the game in 2016. I think Sigthorsson was the goal scorer. Yeah. There's a clip of, I think it might be Steve McLaren on Sky Sports saying this. So Iceland don't really have anything except Sigthorsson up front, and then that coincided right with his goal. So yeah, I said at the time, that if you look at, I think the latest FIFA rankings had been announced at the time, and Ireland have slipped down quite a bit over the last 2 years. We're actually currently ranked 58th in the world. And if you look at the teams that are around us, Greece are just ahead, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, and below us then, coincidentally enough, is Jamaica on 59th, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uzbekistan, and Paraguay. So those are the kind of teams that, they would be considered our peers at the moment. I did say that if any of those had appointed Hallgrimsson, or even if you just look within the UEFA, the teams around us would be Slovenia, Greece, Finland, and Albania. If any of those had appointed Hallgrimsson, I think we would looked at it and said that's the kind of manager that the FAI wouldn't approach and wouldn't appoint. Oh, so, to have him involved, he's coming in as a bit of an outsider to the game here. The last time we did something like that was when we appointed Giovanni Trapattoni.
Yes.
And he, what Hallgrimsson has achieved in the game obviously doesn't compare to what Trapattoni did. But if you look at it from that perspective, as someone coming in with a fresh pair of eyes on the game here, doesn't have any preconceived notions about how the team should play, and will possibly not play the most attractive football in the world, but Trapattoni did get us to 2 years after his appointment. We're in a playoff against France to for the South African World Cup. Probably remembered best for Thierry Henry's handball in Paris. And 2 years after that, we qualified for the Euros in Poland and Ukraine. Now, we stunk out the place with 3 losses in 3 games against, pretty good opposition in Italy, Spain, and Croatia. But the fact, I think what was yeah, people focus, I think, more on the qualification than the performance when they remember Trapattoni's time in charge. And I think if Hallgrimsson can come in, if he can make us a bit more organised, if we can stop conceding goals from distance, and maybe if we can score a little bit more often, we will call the appointment a success.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned in some of those other nations, like was it Congo and Uzbekistan and all that you're kind of surrounded by at the moment, you kind of think actually you've slipped a little further than you really should have. If you think back, I don't know, to maybe 10, 15 years ago, you kind of think that Ireland should be a little higher up than that. So maybe this could be a kickstart that you need. But the other thing I wanted to sort of bring up, as you mentioned there, that apparently Lee Carsley, you say, was sort of being spoken about as being a potential manager. Did that get very far, or was that just sort of paper talk?
He actually brought it up in an interview this weekend, and he said that there was some initial contact between him and the association, but it didn't really go much further than a brief chat over a coffee, I think was the phrase he used. And it never went any further than that. I think he had a lot of support among Ireland fans because of his work with the England under-21 team and the success that he's had, winning the European Championships, playing some really good football and bringing through some really talented players. And it was felt that because the age of the squad has come down a little bit under the previous manager, that he might be a better fit for the current makeup of the team.
Yeah, I mean, he got 40 caps over 11 years for the Irish. So it's obviously, as you say, well respected. And now he's manager of England, temporary, interim, whatever you want to call it, manager of England. How has that sort of gone down?
I think there's people are kind of proud of it a little bit.
Right.
It's England historically don't appoint managers who aren't English. Obviously Sven, and may rest in peace, Capello, I think, are the only two.
That's right.
Now, whatever you want to argue about, he was born in Birmingham, but his Irish heritage and obviously represented the Republic. Having someone like that who represented the country in arguably the highest football managerial position in England is a source of pride, and I don't anticipate any kind of negative reaction to him when he walks out on the pitch in the Aviva Stadium next week.
That's nice positive thought on it. I mean, do I dare say the same would be the same for someone like Declan Rice and Jack Grealish? Because it's kind of strange seeing players change international teams. We're fully used to it at domestic level, aren't we? But it's always a little bit strange when it's international. Yeah,
and like for me, the real problem is the rules, because the eligibility rules seem to change almost on a daily basis, and players can go from being tied to a single country to being available to having being able to represent two or more countries. Yeah. I think Jack Grealish was probably it's very rare for players that come through the Irish youth system to change international allegiance. There had been a few before Grealish. If you remember, Steve Bruce's son, Alex Bruce, actually turned out for the Republic. I think he had 2 or 3 caps and then decided to change his allegiance to Northern Ireland. And I think only ever had 2 or 3 caps for them. Right. So there have been other instances of players changing their allegiance. I think it was the big disappointment with Grealish was that he has the anticipation of what he could have done for the senior international side. We'd seen him come through the under 17, under 19, and under 21 levels. Yeah. He was actually, I think, the reigning under 21 player of the year when he decided to represent England instead. He was captain of Aston Villa and obviously now a £100 million player for Manchester City. So when he did change, the reaction was not good. There was a lot of gnashing of teeth and, once anybody think of the children. But I think over the years, the the feelings towards him have mellowed a little bit, and we do see a lot of the work that he does outside the game. He's known for his the works he does with charities for with disabilities. I think his sister has Down syndrome.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do see, and it seems to be a good character. So that I think has mellowed the reaction to him a little bit. Declan Rice is different. He would be the first player to change allegiance after having senior international caps. He had 3 caps under Martin O'Neill, I think against Turkey, France, and the United States. When he decided to change allegiance over the summer, it was the summer of 2018 during the World Cup. There's a couple of different stories about what really happened. There's one where he was on holidays with his mates, watching the World Cup in a bar and thinking, and his mates all telling him, "Oh, you should be playing for England." And then he looked into it. There's another where the manager, Southgate, realised after the tournament that they needed someone to sit in central midfield, found out that Rice was still eligible because he'd only played in friendlies for the Republic, and approached him. Look, he's similar. He's gone on. He hasn't quite achieved yet what Grealish has, I think, in the game, but obviously playing for Arsenal, a massive transfer when he left West Ham. Yeah, I think that because he had caps for the senior team when he decided to change allegiance, I don't think he's going to get the same reaction as Carsley and Grealish will do.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. Totally get that.
Yeah. So like I say, it's the game now. It's players. I think even just this week I was reading, I think Mason Greenwood is looking to change his allegiance to Jamaica. Yeah. There was Omari Hutchinson actually had turned out for Jamaica, but now is back in England under 21 setup. So the rules, I know, like some of the changes were made because I think some smaller countries were saying they were losing out on players who may have appeared at up to under 21 level or had been capped in friendlies, and now they were cap tied to just say France, for example, and while they may want to play for the country of where their parents were from, say Africa or anywhere else, and they're just the rules right now.
Frustrating, I think, aren't they? Yeah,
that's the best way of describing it. Yeah.
Well, that's England's sort of the England side of things. The Irish squad was announced the other day, and as per sort of the way it is, a lot of the players do ply their trade in England and Scotland. I think pretty much, is it just one player, Troy Parrott, who plays in the Dutch league? I think he's the only player to play outside of the United Kingdom. I think that's right.
Yep, that's correct. Troy was with Spurs. He was on loan in the Dutch league last year with Excelsior. We actually had the host of an Excelsior fan podcast on with us during the year to talk about his performances. Very excited about him, very positive. His performances for Excelsior, who got relegated, is what got him to move to Alkmaar, who will be playing Europa League football this season. Yeah. And ironically enough, he will be going back to face Tottenham later this year.
Oh, have they been drawn in that same league?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right, I didn't notice that. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of names that we've all recognised. Seamus Coleman, I think, is probably one of the. Is he the most capped, I think, within the squad at the moment? Apparently plays at Everton, isn't he? Captain. Who else is there that we might not sort of be fully aware of that maybe is a one to look out for?
Well, one that was just like, we were talking about it, the eligibility. Casey McAteer of Leicester City has decided to change his allegiance to Ireland. He was first mentioned, I think, about a year ago as a possible call up under Stephen Kenny, but it never came about. And apparently the paperwork was concluded recently, and he's been added to the squad. He's only 22. He's appeared for Leicester in their 3 games in the Premier League so far this season, but he hasn't scored. To be honest, I don't know too much about him, but I think we are lacking a bit of width in the team. He is a natural winger. And yeah, look, I don't know if he'll be dropped straight in to face England, but we could see him make his debut against Greece.
Do you know what? I'm literally just looking at his Wikipedia page now, and it actually says, born in England, McAteer is of Irish descent. His granddad once drank Guinness in London, therefore Irish. It genuinely says that on Wikipedia.
Yeah, there's always different edits like that, or maybe someday I think it'll probably be changed to something like, his mother owned an Irish setter.
It's crazy, some of the things on there. Ivan Ferguson, youngster, isn't he, who plays for Brighton?
Yeah, he had a really good season last year until he got picked up an ankle injury. He's still only recovering from it, but scored one of the youngest players ever to score a hat-trick in the Premier League against Newcastle, and seemed to be set to break all kinds of records until he unfortunately picked up an ankle injury. I think his season ended around April. He's still not back to full fitness. He hasn't played for Brighton so far this season, but he was named as a substitute for their League Cup game during the week. But didn't come on. There's a lot of hope around the player that he could be, the next Robbie Keane, really, which is a lot to place on a 19-year-old's shoulders. Yeah. Robbie was an exceptional talent for Ireland, scored more than 60 goals, played more than 100 times for his country, and captained as captain. As things stand, Evan Ferguson is still in the squad. He didn't play for Brighton yesterday. He wasn't named in their squad either. So whether or not he's actually match fit, we'll have to wait and see. But if you look, the average age of the team is 26, which is sounds a little bit older, but Seamus Coleman, who you mentioned, is the oldest in the squad. Not just has the most caps. He's 35, which is probably skewing that a little bit higher. The defence, I think, is quite young. Darrell O'Shea, who's just moved to Ipswich, is 25. Played in Premier League last year with Burnley. Unfortunately, was relegated. Nathan Collins, who's been really good in centre defence for Brentford, is 23. And Jake O'Brien, who sealed a move to Everton in the summer, is also 23. O'Brien's an interesting case, I think, actually. He was on the books at Crystal Palace and then got loaned out to their sister club in Belgium. And somehow from there managed to get a move to the French giants Olympique Lyon. Didn't start the season for them last year as part of the team, but got in because of injuries and kept his place all through the year as they're recovered from a horrific start to the season where they were almost certainties for relegation to eventually finish, I think, 7th. But actually got to the French Cup final against PSG where he scored. But I think they lost 2-1. And he's returned now to England to play in defence under Sean Dyche at Everton. He hasn't played in the Premier League for them yet so far this season, but he did play in their League Cup game. He actually got an assist, but it was one of those assists where it's more like he was the last player to touch the ball before the goal scorer, rather than he actually created a goal.
Yeah, I know those ones. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a few players to look out for there. Just moving away from the pitch for a moment, it'll be my second trip to Dublin and to Ireland. The last time being a game I try and put out of my mind. It was a 0-0 on a Sunday back in must almost be about 9 or 10 years ago. Might have been 2015 off the top of my head. So I'm trying to.
Yeah, frankly, I was at that game myself. Actually,
still recovering.
I don't remember much about it either, other than the scoreline. It was an early kickoff, and I think the police here, the guards, were trying to get the time moved to a little bit earlier for this game. I think the compromise was it's 5:30. I think it's kicking off on Saturday.
So. Yeah.
It was a very early kickoff for that game in 2015. It might have even been like before 12 o'clock, maybe
something like
that. Jack Charlton was introduced to the team to the stadium before it and got a standing ovation. I think it might have been one of his. It was his last time, I think, in front of the fans. Obviously, he was suffering from the early stages of dementia, and again, may you rest in peace.
Yeah. Well, just in the short time that we've got left, maybe you could just give us a quick guide around Dublin. I know that's where you're speaking to us from now. Just maybe a few tips for England fans to maybe go just off the beaten tracks. I know it can be an expensive place at the best of times.
Yeah, it's expensive when you're living here. It's the same. Well, if you're staying in the city centre, if you're going to Aviva Stadium, there's a lot of pubs along the way. If you're going down Bagot Street, there's Searson's. It's a good, really good bar run by a man from my hometown, from Limerick. If you're staying central, we've seen a few kind of craft beer kind of places open up. And one nice one right near Trinity College is Tapped Late Bar at the bottom of Grafton Street, right outside Trinity College. Do some really nice food in there as well. A massive selection of craft beers, as I say. It's a nice spot. And if you just to flip things on the head a little bit, places to avoid, just stay out of Temple Bar. It's advertised as like, the tourist quarter or whatever, but no one in Dublin goes there.
Gotcha.
I'd stay away from that place.
Fair enough. I know you're going to the game. Go on. Are you prepared to put a score on it, or what would be an ideal scoreline, and how do you kind of see the Nations League going for Ireland?
Yeah, I think, similar to the last time we talked nearly 4 years ago, I don't need to play England to know that they're a better team than Ireland. You look down through the squad and, the majority of them played in the final of the European Championships 2 months ago. So I'd say it's going to be an England win. I would like to see a goal. If there's the home fans something to celebrate for the manager's first game. If I had to go with a scoreline, I'd say 3-1. But I think for most people, it's a case of, show some improvements in the team and the tactics. As I say, get a goal and just don't play it off the park. The real, I think, acid test for Hallgrimsson will come against Greece, because we played Greece twice last year. We lost both games home and away. We lost 2-1 in Athens in July, and then almost an exact repeat performance. We lost 2-0 at home in October. And to be honest, it was those two games that cost Kenny his job. I think especially the second game, because there was no improvement. It was a worse result. We did manage to score in Athens. We didn't manage to score against them at home. And Greece just had the measure of us the whole way through. And okay, maybe it's arrogance, but looking through the Greek team, we were kind of going man for man. They're not, 4-1 better than us over two legs. And actually, I had a manager, Gus Poyet, was briefly linked with the Ireland job because of those two performances. But I think he is stuck with Greece. It'll be that game where I think the fans will really want to see an improvement. We don't want to see anything like what we did in those two games, where Greece just completely had the measure of us after about 10 minutes in both games. And I think that's, if we get a win or a draw out of that game, that'll help get the fans on side with the new manager.
Yeah, it's an understandable benchmark to kind of set against. Yeah. Just before we go, I know we can find you on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Irish_abroad. It's a podcast as well.
Yeah, you can find us on Spotify. Just we call it the Ireland Fans Podcast, and we're also on iTunes, Google Podcasts, which I think is shutting down soon, and on Acast. You can find me on Instagram, and we started a Threads account, but it's still very much early days there. It's Irish_football_statistics.
Gotcha. Joe, thank you very much for your time. It's really appreciated. Good insight into Ireland. Enjoy the game. Maybe I'll see you over there.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Russell. Thanks for having me on again. It's been great to talk to you.
Lovely. No, thank you. So Finland, Tuesday the 10th of September, Wembley the venue. It will be the 12th meeting between the two sides. And the history books show there's been 11 games. England have won 9. There have been 2 draws and no losses for England. Now, the first meeting between these two sides was back in 1937 away in Helsinki. Quite the result, as England won 8-0. In all those games since, Finland have only scored 7, all of those in separate matches, to England's 36. 6 of those games have been World Cup qualifiers, and it was the game in 2001 at Anfield where England won 2-1. That was the last time the two sides met. Michael Owen and David Beckham scoring that day. It was a game I remember as I was there. I was front row of the Kop. Ticket price that day, £32. 23 years later, and tickets for England members, well, they're £25. Cost of living crisis? I don't know. The Finland team that day featured a few familiar names still to this day. Antti Niemi in goal. At the time, he was with Hearts in Scotland, but would go on to play for Southampton and Fulham. Sami Hyypiä and Jari Litmanen, both of Liverpool. You may remember Mikael Forsell of Crystal Palace. There's quite a bit to talk about, I think. Here to educate us a little bit more on the Finland side, from the Finnish Football Show, is Mark Wiltshire. Hello, Mark.
Yeah, hi, Russell. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much for joining us. Where are we speaking to you from, Finland?
Yeah, you are. Your listeners can probably hear from my accent. I'm from London originally. I moved to Finland 16 years ago, and that's where I am right now. And I'm feeling that my throat's a bit croaky. That's because my local team over here, SJK Seinäjoki, has had 2 games in the last week, and I'm normally on the terrace shouting my head off like I should know better at my age, but we still got to let it all out.
We're all there. Actually, it's interesting because I was wondering what the Finnish season, when it ran from. I can only assume it's similar to sort of the Premier League, as it were, sort of August to May time. I don't know.
No, it's the complete opposite actually, because it's so cold and frozen over here in the winter. Like I'm where I am, especially. I'm 4 hours north of Helsinki, so it's high up level with sort of the middle of Norway, and sort of British listeners will sort of realise how high that is up compared to the UK. So the season here runs. They have an indoor League Cup competition in February, March, which is surreal and bizarre. And I still haven't got my head around being inside these indoor arenas and these big bubble domes, playing games inside, and they're competitive games shown on TV. It's quite strange to watch. And then the Veikkausliiga, the Finnish Premier League season, starts in April and runs through till end of October. And the season, there's only 12 teams, so they play each other twice, and that's just about to finish now at the end of August. And then the table splits a little bit like in Scotland. And then at the end of the season, the top 6 teams all play each other one more time. The bottom teams play each other one more time. And that sort of sorts out the European places. But the team that finishes 7th gets a playoff against the team that finishes 4th, generally. Right. And there's a European place there for the team that finishes 7th if they can win that playoff place. So it keeps the whole league going pretty much right to the end.
Yeah. So the team that you follow, just remind us of that name again?
SJK Seinäjoki. I'm in the town of Seinäjoki, so it's our local team.
And so are they in that top flight? How are they doing?
Yeah, they are. They've been there now for about 9 seasons, and this year we're doing well. Actually, we've got a quite a British kind of vein running through the club. The technical director is a guy called Richie Dorman, who is, well, Welsh England borders, I think he comes from originally.
Right.
He was here as a player and then became the technical director. The head coach, Stevie Grieve, is Scottish, and he's doing incredible things. I think a name to keep an eye on in future years. And another guy, Ash Civil, who's coaching the academy teams. And there's probably others that I've forgotten, and I apologise. But they're three kind of British names that are at SJK. And we're currently sitting fourth in the Bakehouse Liga with a very, very young but quite exciting team. So it's a good season this year.
Good stuff. Well, we could talk Finnish football for a little while, but I imagine there's another podcast that talks all about that, which we'll come on to.
We do that quite regularly, yeah.
We'll chat about that towards the end. But we're here to talk about Finland against England. What's the thoughts on the street about this meeting, having been so long?
Well, the team that runs the Finnish football show, there's 5 kind of core members plus a few others that come in from time to time, and the 5 core members are all English, so we're obviously excited about it. A couple of us will be there in the stadium in Wembley, and I think a couple of others will probably be in the stadium in Helsinki for the later game as well. So we're kind of excited. But having listened to your introduction, I have to say I'm getting quite nervous now.
Yeah,
but there's a buzz, like in across the Nordics and around the world. There's a big kind of affiliation with English football, British football, and then when these games against the big teams come up, the game sold out, ages ago. The home game, in Helsinki, and they were selling season tickets, they called it. So you could buy a ticket for all 3 games all at once. Okay. And they sold out really quickly. My first home game for Finland was against France 3 or 4 years ago. And, you get the same sort of, there was a big buzz in the ground that day, seeing these big players in Helsinki. And I think for the game over there, it will be similar. At Wembley, well, honestly, I think against the big teams, Finland have to try and keep it solid, tight, and hope to nick something on the counter attack. But I can't say I'm going there full of confidence.
Gotcha. Now, the squad was announced the other day. I think it was the day before England announced their squad. I looked through it and I popped it out on Twitter, said, is there a few names that anyone recognises? A listener, Alfie Wilson, mentioned, now you're going to have to help me with my pronunciation.
Yeah, go on.
I wonder, I must have got Antti Niemi right and Sami Hupia, Jari Liminen.
They sounded good to me.
But is it Ilmari Niskan?
Ilmari Niskanen, yeah. He's been playing in the UK for a few years now.
Exeter.
He is now at Exeter. He came over and played at Dundee United first.
Right.
Then moved down to Exeter, and I think he's into his 2nd season there at the moment. Actually, one of my co-hosts, Keith, he interviewed Ilmari just this summer, and he's a good guy. Plays as a wing back, and when he's able to get down the wing, can be dangerous. Has some pace. I don't know how much of that you'll get to see in the Wembley game. Yeah. If I'm honest, I think for this squad that Finland's announced, there's obviously 2 games coming up. We play Greece on the Saturday and then England on the Wednesday, and I think Finland will be more on the front foot probably in the Greece game.
Yeah,
weather permitting, because it's going to be a bit warm out there.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine. Greece is away then.
Yes, Greece is away, and then followed by a second away game in Wembley.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, the other obvious name that sort of sprung out to me, Teemu Pukki.
Yeah, Teemu Pukki.
Oh,
So in
well,
Finnish,
okay.
when you've got a double letter, you kind of you elongate the sound to get that double letter sound. So Teemu
Okay. Well, I wonder how you'd say Russell then, with two S's, two L's.
Probably like Russell, and try and drag out the L
Yeah,
at the end.
I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Norwich fans will be aware of him.
Yeah, absolutely, and will be one of those kind of legendary players for Norwich, and for Finland. This year, he scored his 42nd international goal. He's now overtaken Jari Lippmann, who is known as the king, and now Pukki has kind of overtaken his goal scoring record. And I think for a couple of years we've been thinking, well, when is his time going to end? But even during this spring in the kind of playoffs for the Euro finals, Pukki's still getting in behind defences and scoring goals, and that's
Because he's only
something
30s,
we can't give up. 34 now.
34, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and playing and scoring goals still over in the Major League Soccer in America.
Well, this is the thing. I was looking through the squad, and it's very European. And I noticed, I think is there 5? I think from the American MLS. Sort of, none of them play in the Finnish, however you Veikkausliiga.
The Veikkausliiga, yeah.
Veikkausliiga,
No, that's true. I mean, it's a good point that actually this squad has no players that are playing in the Veikkausliiga. Often you get a few that are playing at HJK Helsinki. That's the biggest club in Finland and the one that international fans will probably have heard of.
Yeah.
But I think they sort of transfer in and out of Helsinki fairly regularly. So those players that were there and in the national team maybe have moved on, and others have come back in.
Right.
So there's no domestic based players there.
So,
I think it's a squad that over the last couple of years, since Finland's qualified for the Euros that was played 3 years ago, the squad has kind of undergone a bit of a evolution. Older players aged out of the squad, and younger ones have come through. So there's something there that's potentially quite exciting. It's always good to see these younger players come in to the team. I think looking at the squad that's there at the moment, there's Topi Keskinen, who's just landed at Aberdeen, and in his debut scored a goal. So that's going to get him. He's getting in with the Aberdeen fans, and he's quick. Right. So if he gets the ball at his feet and runs at you, he's quick. Whether he's quick enough to get past Carl Walker, for example, remains to be seen.
Who hasn't been selected for the squad as we speak.
No, that is true. Yeah. But or say, okay, so if he's not there must be someone else quite quick.
There's a better chance, maybe.
Yeah. And also up front, I think quite exciting player, Daniel Hawkins. He actually came through my local club, SJK. Okay. He's had a couple of international moves since, and not his debut, but maybe his second game last summer against San Marino came on and grabbed the hat trick, and we're looking to see how he develops as one of these younger strikers coming through. And I think looking at sort of the star of the team, if it's not Teemu Pukki, is the goalkeeper, right? Lukas Radetsky, who's been at Bayer Leverkusen now for many years. He kind of won almost everything he could this year. Bayer Leverkusen won the Bundesliga and the Super Cup, and they came runners up in the German FA Cup and Europa League.
Yeah, great season.
It's a pretty good season by anyone's standards. Yeah. And he's a little bit out there as well. Like, you'll see him after the game leading the singing with the fans. He's often seen wearing an owl mask, a full head mask.
Oh, right.
Because the team is nicknamed the Eagle Owls, and so he feels the need to dress up as one.
Fair enough. If that's what gets him going.
We actually had him on the podcast a few years ago, and he tried to do the interview wearing the mask, and after a minute I had to say, look, we can't hear you. You have to take it off. So I think there's in the squad again, for English fans to recognise, Glenn Kamara was at Arsenal as a kid, moved up to Rangers. Last season played at Leeds. He's a classy player, wins the ball, and then sort of moves the ball forward onto the attackers. And with him in the side, we look better. Alongside Rasmus Schuller, who is kind of the engine in there alongside him. So when I look at the Finland squad compared to where it was sort of 6-7 years ago, it's moving always in the right direction, and it's quite exciting. Then when I think of them lining up against England, I'm a little bit more nervous.
I mean, I don't want to be sort of blowing England's trumpet, but for this particular group, I would expect England to be winning this group at a canter. I don't want to sound blasé, but that's kind of the way I see it. Where would you sort of accept Finland to come in this group?
Well, do you know, I think this is something to think about, the actual competition itself. Like when it was first announced, I was quite positive about it because I thought, hey, we're going to get competitive football against teams of a similar level and maybe can develop. Others in our group were like, oh, I don't know, this could affect the coefficient. We won't be playing against such good teams.
Yeah.
And then I think in the UK, people are quite sniffy about it. I mean, as they always are. England is always sniffy about a new competition. It didn't want to be part of the World Cup. It didn't want to be part of the Euros when they started. It's similar here with the Nations League, but it has, and you've seen it with even smaller teams. I think like maybe like Liechtenstein and Malta and clubs at those levels. Some of them now are starting to win games and progress up through the league table. So I think where Finland are is perfect. It is their level, this second level. Yeah. I think for England dropping down, I didn't see many of their games in the last Nations League because they were often played at the same time as Finland. So right. I didn't see those performances, and I remember they were quite close affairs, lost by a goal here or there.
Well, other than the 4-0 against Hungary.
Oh well, that's true, and I didn't watch that game, and I certainly wasn't inclined to watch the highlights afterwards either.
Believe me, it was worse being there.
Yeah, I believe that. So, yeah, I think England should bounce back. If I look at the other two teams in the group, I don't think that Greece and Ireland are easy for Finland to beat, but I think that they are beatable, and they will probably think that Finland are beatable as well. Yeah. For example, in the last Nations League, we were in a group with Bosnia, Montenegro, and Romania, and it was at one stage, I think all the teams it was something like all of them were on 6 points. It was so close, and then in the final couple of games, it stretched out a little bit, and Finland finished second. Okay, and I think finishing second and challenging for that top spot is pretty good. I mean, I think if we were up in the top level, it would be a battle every week. Maybe the team would develop, or maybe it would struggle. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a competition that I was always in favour of it, and I think it is, like you say, some of these teams have proven themselves. So if you take a look at the Euros recently, where your likes of Albania were doing well, and you can see perhaps those sort of results have stemmed from the
they build up a momentum and push forward. Yeah,
no, I think it's been a good concept, and long may it continue.
I did hear someone on a podcast the other day say, "Oh, now all we have are competitive games, and there's no friendlies for the managers to try something new." And I just thought, yeah, I remember those days of Sven making like 8 or 9 substitutions when that was a rare thing, and the game died.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have competitive football personally.
Yeah, no, I think we all would. Now, this game at Wembley, are you on the way?
Well, not quite yet, but next Friday, the 6th, we'll be flying over. I'm making a bit of a longer trip of it. I've got 10 days over in London visiting family, and after England versus Finland, I've just managed to get myself 2 tickets for Wimbledon versus Milton Keynes as well. So
Ooh, spicy!
I got a good week of it.
Oh, I love that. So tell us a little bit about the Finnish football show.
So it's formed originally by 3 British guys. We all had blogs and podcasts about various things, and the overlap was somehow football in Finland. So we've been going for 9 years. There's now a bit of a bigger team because people have different commitments. So we got a core team of 5 plus a slightly wider group of sort of the closer fans and followers of the show that occasionally take part as well. So we've always got some different voices coming through, and we're following what's going on in the Veikkausliiga. We're following the national team, and also trying to follow more and more the women's game as well, certainly at the international level. And there will be 2 of us at the game in Wembley in the Finland end. So if anyone's there a bit suspicious that there's these Finland shirts walking around with a strong Kent or South London accent, then, it's just us. The Finnish fans, a lot of the Finnish fans know who we are and what we're up to. Okay. It might be a strange one for the Wembley stewards.
Yeah. Well, we should say hello maybe outside the away end.
If you're there, yeah, it'd be good to. We've had a couple of people who follow our show saying that live in the UK saying, "Oh, if I'm at the game, can we come and say hi?" So I'll have to have a big sign saying this is me.
Yeah, well, I've got your number. I'll ping you a message. Maybe
do that.
Various pubs around the ground as well. Mark, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and just give us an insight into to Finnish football, and enjoy the game, and maybe we can catch up for the return leg. You can give us a guide to Helsinki.
That's a good idea.
My many thanks to Mark Wilshire there, and also to Joe McCarthy, who gave us the lowdown on Ireland before that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always appreciated. For those heading to Dublin, safe trip. I may see you there. I know some listen to the pod on flights to away games. This one may have stretched on a little longer than your flight takes. But I hope that you've enjoyed it and found it helpful. I will be back with you very soon, probably taking a look back on both of these games. So I hope you can join me for it. So until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.